to be connected with you. And with your permission, I would like to take this conversation forward.
Absolutely, Rohit. Thank you so much for having me here. I'd love to, have a chat with you.
Super. So, what is happening today is the first in the series of innovator interviews that we plan to do throughout this year and going forward. And the idea is to uh, bring people like you, Abhishek, who can talk about what their real world experiences were and what it took to translate an idea into an enterprise. So that is the first goal. Secondly, with the kind of ecosystem we are working in today, we have a very strong connect with government agencies, with non-profits, with academic institutions, with innovators, students, so on and so forth. And when we are doing that, one thing we recognized was that someone who can relate to where they are today can make a big difference. So that is why I feel the discussion with you is going to be very productive. And thanks for being here. So to begin with, so do you want to just kind of say something about yourself in a minute, and then I'll get into the formal introductions and we can start the interview.
Sure, Rohit. I'll just do a quick introduction about myself. So, guys, I'm Abhishek. I'm from Aurangabad. I graduated from IIT Bombay in 2014. Then I went to Harvard to do my master's over there. Came back in 2015 and I started this company called Spruce Up. And our mission basically is to develop innovative cleaning machinery for cleaning the roads and streets of India. And the reason we decided to do this was we felt that in 21st century when we are where we are, where India is making so many highways, expressways, we've got like a Tejas fighter and we've got our own ISRO. But when it comes to cleaning, we're still on a Jadu. So I thought that it's important that we have good indigenous Indian machinery designed for Indian context. And Europeans, Americans, their machines don't really work so well in the Indian conditions because anyone who has seen Europe or been there knows that they are extremely, extremely different circumstances. The context is very different, and those kind of equipments don't work well here, and neither does their economics, right? So that was the brief background and premise on which we decided to start this company. And in the past 5 years, we have successfully sold nearly, I think, over 100 machines to 20 cities, including the likes of Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, Vijayawada, Mysore, Dehradun, Varanasi. And we have sold it across the geography in India, from Jamnagar to the west, to Nagaland to the east, Uttarkashi in the north, Chennai in the south. Incidentally, we have even sold one machine to New Zealand. And we've sold to large clients like Reliance, Mitsubishi, HCL. So that's kind of our journey. That's how our journey has been. Started with not a lot of knowledge in this space. I do not have a mechanical background. I do not have a manufacturing background, not a business background. So for us to navigate through all of these was extremely challenging. But somehow we're managing to keep up the good work. That's a little bit about us, Rohit.
Got it. That sets the context really well. And just to introduce Magic to you, and we have been talking about it. So we have been in this incubation and acceleration work since more than 5 years. And it has been an exciting journey. And what we feel is more exciting is the passion and the drive that innovators like you uh, bring to this ecosystem. So we have been very closely connected with such innovators, and there is a lot of good work that we have done so far. The startups that have worked with us have generated around like 100 plus jobs so far, and we want to do more. But what we also want to emphasize on with interactions like someone like you is to how this whole thing works. So that is what potentially our next 30 to 40 minutes will be focused on. To begin with, I mean, you have introduced yourself. I know you are IITB, you are a hardware alumni. So, I mean, I'm just thinking, I mean, what was the inspiration? Like, what drove you to do what you're doing today?
Uh, so the inspiration, I think there are two, three bits to it. First bit is that after graduating from IIT Bombay, from Harvard, I felt that uh, it's very rare to get opportunity to study at both these places, and I felt that I owe it to the country to do something about it. At least give something back. And particularly, when you're studying in IIT, it's a national institute. Very few people get to go there. So that was first kind of a motivation. Second was that I'm a mountaineer. I've been to the Himalayas 4 or 5 times, and I feel that the air, the beauty that is there, the cleanliness that is there at the top is extremely, extremely beautiful, and I feel that everyone should have it. I mean, it should not be just in a small little corner tucked away, at some remote part of the country. I think it should be there on our streets. The kind of black roads, the green trees, the nice air. I think it should be there everywhere. And I thought, if you could bring that to all of us, I think that would be great. And thirdly, I think primarily I'm an entrepreneur by heart, and this is starting something was just something I wanted to do. And for entrepreneurs, I don't think there is any other country better at the moment than India. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. I think not US, not Europe, none of the other countries can offer, growth and scale and excitement like India can. And I think this combination of these kind of three factors led me to come back and start something over here.
Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense. And guys, everyone who's on the call, if you have any questions, you can type those questions in the chat window. So our team can prioritize those and take them with Abhishek on this call itself. Okay. So, so what you have spoken about, Abhishek, that brings me to the next question. And I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes. That you know what, I am IITB. I am studying at Harvard, and I have so many opportunities for myself. I can go to one of the MBB consulting firms. I can get into investment banking, have a great life for myself. You know what? I mean, extremely comfortable. The interactions I've had with you so far, I feel you brought yourself back into a discomfort and a challenging environment to do something. So, what is the thought process? I mean, honestly speaking, I don't find any sense in that. I mean, had I been in your shoes, I probably would have joined investment banking or maybe one of the MBBs. So, how does it work?
Uh, so I think for me personally, primarily it stems from the fact that I've always wanted to be independent. So that is what really drove me. Even while I was at Harvard, I had a startup over there, and I was incubated in part of the Harvard Innovation Lab in their venture incubation program. It's one of the most elite innovation and incubation programs that is there. So I always wanted to do something, and like I said, I thought India was the best opportunity to do that. That is one. Second is, contrary to what you say, that I've got these good institutes behind my back. I think it's all the more reason to go ahead and take a risk, because if you can't take a risk, then who can, right? So somebody's got to take a risk and do something. Otherwise, new stuff wouldn't get made. And so for me, having these two institutes kind of gives you a safety net to go ahead and try and risk something and see if it works. Thirdly is, yes, it's discomfort. And thirdly, I would say 2020 hindsight, discomfort and all of that, I did not think it would be so hard, to be honest with you. I thought it would be all very nice. And this is, I think, this is one of the big things I think all startup people who start up also have. They think that it's going to be nice. They think it's going to be easy, but it's not. There's going to be a lot of pain. It's going to be a lot of hard work. And I retrospectively now realize that, it was a pretty wild and crazy decision to make. But so in all fairness, I was also a bit ignorant and, just headstrong, and I decided to do it. And I think that's very important. If you don't have that, if you approach everything logically, believe me, you'll not be able to get through the first 6 months of your startup. So you have to have that little bit of ignorance and extreme optimism to go ahead and do this and know that things would turn out right.
Gotcha. We had a session today morning, and we were speaking with students who are now going to enroll into their bachelor's or master's programs. And the program was more around entrepreneurship or innovation. And what we were talking about is the mindset or what academic institutions can do to fuel that mindset top down. Because the innovator is an individual, right? He's discouraged or disappointed by parents, discouraged and disappointed by faculty in several cases. And end of the day, what happens is that, I mean, he gets convinced to the fact that, what, I am getting educated because I have to do a job. So my next question to you is, how did your education or academic track help you achieve what you're doing today? In what way did they contribute to this mission?
Right. So I don't think anything helped me in an absolute direct way, because my IIT Bombay degree was in pure physics, and pure physics is quantum mechanics. It's really of no use in day-to-day life. So it did not help me in a very direct way over there. My master's somewhat, but also it was more on technology and education domain. So not much with waste and heavy machinery, also is a very far removed topic. So it did not help me directly, but I think institute like IIT and Harvard, they instill a sense of thinking in you. That is one. And second is that they give you a fantastic alumni network. So those two things I had. Primarily, I would like to talk about the first one, being that learning how to think in a good way, learning how to approach problems, not get frightened by problems, and just persevere. I think that's very much the spirit of IIT, any IIT, and that is, I think, paramount for any entrepreneurship career path. So that was kind of drilled into me, before IIT as well, for a couple of years while preparing for it, and in the institute itself, that you have to solve your own problems. You have to go use Google, talk to people, do what you have to do, but you got to go and you got to solve the problems. There is nothing, you cannot have any excuse saying that I don't know this, I don't know that, because that's just how the world works. And thirdly, I would say, is being amongst talented people, you realize that, there are always people smarter than you. Any institute you go to, you'll find like 100 people smarter than you. So knowing that the only thing that keeps you going ahead is hard work. And I think, while I have been privileged to go to these institutes, I think these lessons are pretty much universal. and that is what must be taken. And also circling back to a point that you mentioned, I think most importantly, anyone who is looking to pursue this path, the one big advice that I would like to give to anyone is that do not think that every decision is a one-way door, right? Many times decisions in your life are a two-way door. You can go, try it out and come back and nothing would happen, right? So you first have to see, is this decision a one-way door or is it a two-way door? And many times you will find that they are two-way doors. And if they are two-way doors, you should just go ahead and try it out. If it's a one-way door, then I can understand a lot of thought needs to go into it, a lot of careful planning. But I believe there are always smart and creative ways to try something out without actually exposing yourself to risk. And if you can do that well, you can navigate those challenging environments where you might have someone in the house saying you shouldn't do this, someone like you mentioned in the faculty saying you shouldn't do this. I mean, you should respect their opinion, but that's just their opinion. Create an experiment for yourself and run that experiment, and you will know whether it's working or not. And finally, its data speaks louder than anything else, right? I mean, if you're able to sell to 10 clients, I mean, not your parent, not your faculty, and nobody on earth will be able to tell you otherwise. So it shouldn't be looked at as that hard and fast a decision.
Correct. That's a very good point. And in fact, the one thing you spoke about is about there are always going to be smarter people, great individuals that can contribute to an initiative, which brings me to the next question as to how you went about building your team. And I think that is one important and very critical experience that any startup should take, that this is not a one-man show. It is not possible. I mean, they can run one shop individually, but if you are talking about creating unicorns, if you are talking about making an impact, if you are talking about making a difference in the story of nation building, then building the team is a very big element to that. So, how did you go about with it? I mean, we know Steve Jobs had a problem with his partner, and they had a fight about it, and it didn't work out. But what are your experiences around this one?
So I think first bit is that there are a lot of technologies and platforms available like LinkedIn, for example, where you can find a lot of great people. Second is that oftentimes the early people or the people who are in the founding team of that nature come from extremely close circles. So you can approach them. But I think the fundamental thing that is there is that you need to have a powerful story, right? People don't join startups because typically in the early stages until you're funded, typically they don't join because there is so much money and there is so much fame and there is so much glamour. They join for the story. So if you've got a powerful and compelling narrative, I think you can inspire a lot of people, and there are a lot of people out there who want to try out things. So the first and foremost is a very strong narrative. You need to have a story which when you tell someone, it inspires them. And ideally, if like I said in the earlier question, if you can do some experiment and generate some data, it might be low cost data. It can be going out on the street and talking to 100 people. It doesn't cost anything. But if you can do that, and if you can get some data, your story is backed up with more hard stuff, and that convinces people more. And lastly, you should be shameless in just going out and asking, because this is your life we are talking about. It's gonna be very challenging. It's gonna be, extremely intensive. So just go ahead and ask people and have a great narrative, have a great story, and make sure that you're going to treat everyone nicely, and things will work out. Things might not work out. I mean, you might get someone. So it happens in stages. Someone comes and It might not work out with them, but because of them, someone else hears it, they come. And over time, you just start attracting the right kind of people, and it snowballs into a large team which is passionate and interested about the same problem.
In this context, one thing that is very prevalent is by nature, everybody is inclined towards gathering people whom they know, right? So you want to find someone who was either studying with you or working with you, or maybe is part of your family. And that is where the objectivity kind of starts getting diluted.
True.
So, if you're talking about an innovator in isolation, how should they think about who should be their co-founder? Who should be the person, say, working with you? For example, if we put you on the spot, who are to bring in the next co-founder for Spruce Up? So, what are those criteria? What are those elements that they should look for, keeping away the conventional criterias of ये मेरे गांव का है क्या नहीं, ये मराठी बोलता है क्या नहीं.
Correct.
Keeping those aside, what are those
Correct.
things? Yeah.
So I think the biggest criteria is finding for your weakness. I think so. The way to approach that objectively is that first you need to have an ideal person sketched out. So you need to assess for yourself either introspectively, or you should go and talk to people who know you, who have seen your work, and you should ask them, what are my weaknesses? What are the areas that I'm not good at? If you can run experiments, so even before hiring someone, if you can run a small 6-month experiment with a business, and see, you will soon discover things about yourself. I'm not so good at this, I'm not so good at that, my knack is somewhere else, my superpower is in some other area. So once you discover that, you need to kind of write that down and sketch that down, and really approach it methodically. So step one, I would say, is write that down. Step two is, again, talk to people, do an experiment and see what does the business need, because different businesses require different skill sets. Not all require the same kind of skill sets in the same amounts. So you need to discover what exactly are the key strengths and pillars, the key nuts and bolts your business specifically is going to require. And once you have that, and once you have you need to kind of put them together and see where the gaps are coming out. And once you have the gaps, then you need to create a sketch of a ideal person. Ideally, if this were there, who knew X, Y, Z, who would be A, B, C, etc. And there can be, competencies, skills, but there can also be social stuff. Someone who talks well, someone, whatever. And once you have that, then you need to optimize for finding people as close to that as possible. See, it's not going to be easy to get someone who's going to be a perfect fit, because as a startup, you're always resource starved. You're never going to get what you really want. So you're always going to have to work with the best compromise. That's almost universally true, even if you're a billion-dollar company. So I think once you have that, then tying back to what I said earlier, just reach out, talk to people, and be cold hard in your objectivity and analysis. And definitely don't go, like you said, just because he speaks one language or he's from the same town. Do not go on that, because you have to understand the biggest loser is going to be you, right? If things don't work out, it's your time that's going to get lost. It's not a job where you mess up and somebody else loses the money. So you have to choose like you would choose for you choose for marriage or something like that.
Got it. So you have had a journey of around 3 to 4 years now. Are there any highlights that you would like to speak us or share with the team over here that really make you proud about what has transpired so far?
Yeah, I think there are a few. First, I think that doing R&D in India is incredibly hard, because and especially for small people. I think even for big people, not a lot of R&D happens in India actually. Even after so many years, in '98, Tata was the first company to actually make a car in India, and in '99 they made it. It was pretty hard for them to make it. The Indica, the first model had a lot of issues. Then in 2020 they had to change and fix it all up. So for 100 years of Tata being there, and generally automotives and cars being around in the world for 100 years, the first car actually was made by Indian company in '99. It's not too long ago actually. So R&D is very hard in India as it is. So doing that was very challenging for us, more so because I did not have a mechanical background, so I had to learn and teach everything to myself. Secondly, I would say is government. I think government is hard for anyone. I mean, if you are Rafael, whoever you are, government is very hard, because there are just so many people and so many stakeholders, and oftentimes product is just 10-20% part of the entire thing that is operating. So for us, having sold to 20 different governments, it's extremely challenging, and we have been able to do that. And the way we did that was, we have started doing dealer distributor model, and we identify right kind of partners and we work with them. So we were able to crack that problem. Third is probably operating in a bootstrapped environment is again very challenging, because a heavy machinery, truck mounted product doing national level sales and services from Nagaland to Gujarat and all that on a bootstrap budget, it's very hard. In fact, the last two machines that we have made, they are the most advanced machines of their kind, and we have made them without a prototype. So the way we conserve money is we use software and planning and research on paper as much as we possibly can. And the first product that we make, that is our prototype slash demo machine. So we do not have a separate prototype and a separate demo machine. The first product is right off the bat, directly functional, does everything, which is very hard when you have got 1,000+ components with hydraulics, pneumatics, telematics, a high-speed turbo machinery inside, compact aerodynamics. So when all these parts come together, making it work in the first go is actually pretty damn hard. So I think these are some highlights of areas which we are proud of that we've been able to get through. And also maybe these two pandemics, pretty hard to navigate that when you are a very physical company where you have to have face-to-face presence. When you're selling to government, you cannot sell sitting here making a phone call. So navigating these two large calamities also is extremely challenging.
Sure. Makes sense. And in fact, I want to call out if there are any best practices that you would like startups to follow, especially when it comes to making a social or environmental impact when it comes to working with governments.
Best practice working with the government is to not work with the government. That's, to be honest, my best advice. Anyway, what I mean to say is not work with government in full 100% capacity. You should work with the government only to 10, 20, 30% of exposure. You should not expose all revenue stream to government, because it can get really challenging. That's what we did. And I feel that the best way to work with the government is with patience, is with peace, is having a revenue stream on the sideline. And that is something, first and foremost, I would like to tell anyone who is looking to work in that space. So first, I would say set up a private revenue stream. Once you've got a stable income taking care of your bread and butter, then you can go out and explore the government. Second is that best practice is working with the government. Always work with someone for the first 5-10 contracts. Do not expose yourself to whatever the government is asking or doing. Keep yourself one arm's away length from everything, and get some kind of an intermediary and just give them a success fee based kind of a format that you achieve this and we'll give you. And if you have to take it at a, if you're going to lose profit, that's fine. If you're going to not make money on that deal, that's fine. But just enter that space with someone, and you'll not burn yourself in that process. At least you'll burn yourself minimally. You're sure to get burned, but minimally is the best you can hope for.
Gotcha. And before I get into my next question, I wanted to touch upon what you called out earlier, which also is a myth, is about you and the Poonawala initiative being analogous, which I don't think is the case. So can you call out how you're different from what other Poonawala is doing in Pune for the Smart City
Sure.
and Clean City initiative?
Sure. See, so Adar Poonawala's initiative is fantastic. He wanted to do something really good. Unfortunately, he did not have the right kind of machines to do this. So when he started, we did not have any machines when he actually started the project. And what he did was he bought machines from Europe. And that is the most obvious thing you would do if you want to do something, you want to bring in some kind of change, and you do not find any solution, you're going to go get it from wherever you want. And for the kind of resources and capabilities that he has, he went to Europe, he put in a lot of money, and he got those machines. But the catch over there is that European machines are designed primarily for leaf collection, because Europe does not have garbage. I mean, anyone who thinks that Europe has the similar kind of garbage as India, they need to just go visit there once. India has absolutely world number one kind of garbage. I mean, category one kind of garbage. It's extremely hard. Like right now, we have got monsoons. The garbage gets so hard to pick up. It's incredibly hard, and the kind of machines which can tackle that are actually not there in Europe and US. So those machines are great. European machines are great. They're just not right for Indian conditions. It's like bringing a limousine to, streets of India. Machine is great, but it's just not compatible. The difference between there and ours is ours has a much more heavy duty, more powerful, more rugged, more stronger machines which are designed for Indian context. One, two, our economics are much more better. Three, Indian operators do not have the kind of training like Europeans or Americans do. So Indian operators are very rough, especially municipal operators. They would be happy to break your machine so that they get the day off. So there are a lot of challenges that are there in the Indian environment, and those machines are just not designed for that kind of a heavy, rough use. So that's where our machines are really capable of. And speaking of those machines, I mean, it's not, it would seem biased of me saying those machines don't work, but right now we are working with Pune Corporation and they are interested in buying our machines because those machines don't work. It's coming straight from horse's mouth. Just 2 days back, I was with the commissioner of Pune. So that is the on-ground reality. Those machines are great, but they're just not very suited for the Indian context. And our machines are, and in fact, our machines are deployed at more locations. We have more runtime, and we have a lot of stuff which is unique for the Indian context. That's also why their machines have not successfully, been able to go beyond what he himself put his money on. So that's some differences between what they have done and what we are doing.
Got it. So we generally speak about good things. I want to touch upon some failures you have had in the past. It can be either during your academics or the earlier ventures, or even at Spruce Up. So, a couple of those, how you learn from those.
I think my biggest list of failures mostly is in the last 5 years. I mean, I have not failed as many times as I have in, before that. I think last 5 years has a extremely strong track record of failures, because I think that's the very nature of working in a complex space. And I think that is something that everyone needs to understand, that if you're working in extremely complex problems, the failure is part of it, and that's the way you actually learn, right? That's how actually it works. So, and this is the entrepreneurial path. I mean, failure is just a part of life, and you just have to take it in stride. But what you learn from failures is you become extremely strong at things. You learn things with a lot of depth which you don't understand from farther away. In particular, I think couple of failures that I would like to talk about is the very first prototypes that we made, right? Very first prototypes. We had no idea of how this mechanical stuff really worked. So the failure of estimating the kind of R&D it would take was there. We did not really comprehend the challenge that was in front of us. So that took us extra amount of time. We could have done it faster if we were more wiser, but 2020 is hindsight. So retrospectively, uh, we couldn't have done much different. Secondly, is that again, we thought that government is going to be hunky dory. Oh, I've come back from IIT, I've come back from Harvard, I've made this amazing machine. Government should, take this machine. It's so good. Doesn't work. So you might make great products, you might be whatever, you might have a great background, but that makes no sense, and I mean that makes no difference ultimately to a client, in particular to a government client. So you should definitely not take these things for granted. The only thing that works sustainably in the long term is having a solid product, having a value proposition which is at least 4 5x better than any alternative. Because if you're 1 or 2x better, if you're 10% 20% better, they might as well go ahead with what they're already using, because people don't want to change. That's the nature of human psychology. We like doing what we do, even it might be wrong, it might be right, whatever it is. But for us to change, a much more larger uh, mass of convincing is required. So that is what we had to do. We had to work on. So after our first model, we had to learn a lot, and we had to make a second model which took another year to develop, and that is the one which actually became successful. So that, and I think these are probably two highlights I would like to say.
Got it. So, if I pose you with a hypothetical scenario that you can start a venture of yourself, and in fact, you can incubate three ideas, which areas would you focus on?
One area I find particularly exciting at the moment is the heating, ventilation, air conditioning space. India is a very hot country, and a lot of emerging economies are hot countries, and we need a lot of air conditioning. And air conditioning is extremely inefficient. It's very energy intensive. It's very expensive. I think nowadays, AC is becoming a commonplace, and with a population of 1.3 billion, I think if everyone starts buying ACs, the electricity bill of the country, which in turn means more fossil fuel burning, all that thing would increase rampantly, which is not good for us, or for the environment. And there are a lot of new innovations and developments that have happened, but somehow they have not come down to the marketplace. So this space has a lot of potential for disruption, particularly because a lot of cost saving methods which can be then mixed into a subscription based savings business model can be made, and it's a very exciting space, and many people are also interested in putting money in it. Second space is generally making things intelligent, making them electric, making them autonomous. There is a lot of potential in these areas, and particularly given that my background is in the B2B, B2G sector, I think a lot of potential in the B2B sector. I think, electric cars, electric two-wheelers, all that it's all very nice and sexy, but those are extremely hard businesses meant for very deep-pocketed players with deep industry expertise and contacts. It's not that kind of an easy game. But B2B, B2G is much more easily entrepreneurially achievable, and that is a very ignored sector. Everyone wants to do the cool new stuff, but B2B, there is so much potential there that we feel that a lot of stuff can be done over there. And yeah, I think these two areas, I think I would put my money on.
On the agri and food front, do you have any thoughts? I mean, I know you are not connected to it, but like,
Agri and food front, I think it is important to find high margin business. Agri, the challenge is margins are a challenge. You get pushed down. So unless you are able to find product, if you're able to put yourself in a B2B space, again, if you go to, end user, I think you'll be very hard pressed to get good margins, and you will have to go for scale, and scaling is very challenging. B2B side, if you can get into some innovative food processing kind of high margin equipments, which probably are imported right now, I think there is a great potential there. I think in the food space and agri space, I think generally it would hold true in both of these. I think it is important to any kind of business you're in, you need to hold good margins. Otherwise, it's a whole different ball game if you're on the low side of things. So I would just say, venture with care in entering those lines. Make sure your sector or area you're choosing is a high margin side. Then you want to migrate forward into that low margin side once you have got certain kind of scale, and that is different story. But if you're starting out, it should be 50, 100 clients should be able to make your 6 months or make your year, that kind of a model.
Sure, sure. Wonderful. Rajendra, do we want to take any questions from the audience on today's call?
Can't hear you.
Rajendra, I think you are on mute. Hello. Hello. Do we have any questions from the audience?
There are some questions in the chat box. I think I would just, go ahead and answer them.
Sure.
So how did I build my team? I think I answered that. Challenges is, there are lots of challenges. I have lost a lot of friends, made some friends. It's because you have to be pretty cutthroat, because it's your life that's at stake, literally. So those are some of the challenges. You don't always get it right, and so yeah, a lot of painful stuff there, but lots to learn. And team building happens over time. Especially if you're starting out with zero, right? I mean, there is a difference between first time entrepreneur, second time, third time. When you're doing a second time, if I'm doing, if in the future when I go to do something else, team building is very different for me, because I already have teams. I have people. I can just reach out to them. I know who's good at what. But when you're starting out from scratch, I think failure is just part of the process. Couple of things: don't be too committal. Don't make lifelong plans. I mean, you have to commit all of these things, it's true, but just always be objective at any point. Don't let yourself slide, especially in the early stages, because one wrong hire, and if you get emotionally invested in that person and you do not remove them for the next 12 months, you're going to have a lot of damage. So you'd rather get the person out, but at the same time give as much reasonable grace and room of doubt you can. But once you feel it's time to pull the plug, you have to do what you have to do. Future of startup culture in India, I think it's absolutely amazing. I think 2021 is a testament to that. I think, I don't know, 10, 20 unicorns came out this year. So future of startups is just absolutely very good. But I would say startups is too blanket a word. Okay, there are 10,000 startups, only 100 of them actually succeed. So future of startups is very good, and also there is more understanding and there is more appreciation. More people are willing to join, more people are willing to fund, more people are willing to buy from startups. I think a lot of acceptability has come, especially through pandemic. Everyone has touched upon some kind of startup service, probably, which they wouldn't have earlier. So I think there is a lot of acceptance for this, and definitely one of the great things one can do if you have got the right kind of safe space to do it in. Shouldn't do it if you've got a lot at stake. Waste segregation, someone asked a question about that. So the answer to that is waste segregation is very important. It's a very big problem in India, and but the waste problem in general is so big that no one company can solve everything. So if I go and make waste segregation also, make this also, it will make me a flat company with not good products anywhere. So we decided to focus our problem on the collection space. 30% of India's garbage does not get collected. I mean, that's nearly 20 million tons. Half of that, because it's not getting collected, half of that gets burnt in front of our houses. So that pollution adds, and that's a very bad kind of pollution because there is no pollution control there. Plastic is directly getting burnt and fumes are coming in the air. So there are a lot of problems in this space, and everyone needs to tackle some kind of a thing. We decided to keep our focus on the collection bit. Segregation is certainly a big problem, but I think there are other people solving that. And there is a lot of industry focus on segregation, waste to energy. A lot of companies do that. But we thought that there is nobody picking up the garbage right is in front of our eyes, which is just bad. So that is why we decided to focus on that bit. Generally about financials, I have a question here. We are a bootstrapped company, so we have not raised any kind of funding. Our products cost from around 10 lakh all the way to probably 40 lakh rupees. And competing products in US, Europe cost almost 3 times as much as that.
Any more questions? One thing I wanted to touch upon.
Sure, Rohit.
Yeah, so let's just ignore spruce up, okay?
Okay.
Let's just talk about you as a person individually who's been to IITB, who's been to Harvard, and now doing really great work, who has also great ideas. So what I'm so what I'm thinking is, typically when it comes to import subs, or when it comes to the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiatives, or anything else that we won't do from a self-reliance perspective, how do we actually bring it in action? And we can kind of pick those points from your journey itself, but any elements in your own spruce up journey that you want to connect with these objectives, that can also be of great help.
So your question is, what can we do more to promote? Is that the question?
Yeah. So that is one question. Other question is that we are extremely emphatic about substituting imports. So we want to do things ourselves. We want to have captive capacity to build things that are important for the nation. How do we go about with that? I mean, you are someone who kind of just left a great life in a different country to come back to India, and you did something what you felt was important for you. But when we are driving this journey, anything from your experience that connects to this objective as well? I think that would be great to know. I mean, whatever you want to say about it.
I feel that startups doing anything new, there is a method to it. I mean, it's not just art, and it's not just winging it. There is a method to it, and the method is not frequently talked about in India. We talk about doing something, we talk about giving incentives, schemes, subsidies. I think there are accelerators, incubators, there are people who will also guide you, but I think there is a canon of literature that is there, which which talks about the method of doing this. And I feel that method is something that needs to be codified and explicitly taught. So what I mean by method is, like, for example, how should the product be? It's a very simple question. I mean, how should the product be? The product should be, like I said, should be 3x, 4x better than what's out there. I think there are some very few basic points that are there which get missed. Mostly we talk about the broad stuff. What I mean to say, Rohit, is most of the advice is very broad. Government will give you broad advice, but what lacks are the details, and it is the details that actually kill you. What makes a difference between an Android and an iPhone? Android is also phone, iPhone is also a smartphone. But it's the details that are there in the Apple devices that make them more premium and more sophisticated and, well, have a $2 trillion market cap. So we don't talk about details a lot in India. And this is, by the way, something I learned more in Harvard. In European and US culture, these details have tremendous value and tremendous importance. If something, something which is very well fleshed out, there is a lot of appreciation for that over there. But in India, it's not as much. And I feel it is something that we all need to learn. And anyone who has used a European product versus an Indian product, a good European versus a bad Indian product. There are some Indian products which are better than Europeans, for sure. I don't want to generalize. But anyone has used those products knows that the European products or American products have the kind of finesse, the kind of quality, the soft details that are there. So I think there needs to be a curriculum or a way to educate entrepreneurs on how to get these details, because huge part of business is in the details, right? You might make a great machine, but if it looks like a box, people are not going to buy it. I mean, Elon Musk could have made a box, but he has made a very beautiful car. I think MAGIC's homepage right now has the Cybertruck on it. So, he could have just made just a regular looking car, but he made sure that the car looks extremely weird. I mean, it's got a lot of aesthetic angles that he has. Aesthetic are good or bad, it's different, but it's sure to catch eye. There is a lot of thought, deep level thought that has gone into it. And it is often on these details we kind of miss out. And I think if we can, infuse that into our culture in a more pervasive way, that would make a huge difference in making Indian products well respected, appreciated, and also command more value and get more premium in the market. And then be really true substitute. Just reducing price is not substitution, right? I mean, quality also has to be matched. So.
Hi, Abhishek, Ritesh here.
Hi, Ritesh, how are you?
I'm
Nice
good.
talking to you.
Yeah. So, Abhishek, I had a question, and I don't know if others might be thinking about it. Your journey has been of approximately 5 to 6 years now.
Right.
My simple question is, what next? And what's there in the next 4 to 5 years?
For us, I think it took us extraordinary large amount of time for a couple of reasons. One is we're working in the government sector. Second is we're working in the waste sector. Third, we are working in the heavy machinery sector. All these sectors, even isolation, are not usually funded. So all put together, very hard to get funding. So when you're bootstrapping, you have to really do the slow way. So that took us a lot of time. But having done and put in that due time, I think now we have got the ball rolling. And for us now, it's scaling. So we had the primary Jatayu product, which was there, but now we have started developing, and we have even launched a dedicated line of national highway sweepers, which can keep the entire national highway clean, right from the boards, sign gauges, dividers, crash barriers, service lanes, toll nakas. The entire national highway network can be made clean with those machines. So we are launching those, and we're also launching a line of electric machines, which were more small form factor for industries, universities, and smaller areas. And yeah, so right now I think for us more focus is on expanding the product line and also the sectors that we are operating in. And that's the direction we would go in. And in the larger distant future, we feel that there is a need for more river cleaning, beach cleaning machines. There is a need for lake cleaning machines. There's too much garbage everywhere. So I think this sector, we just need to expand into more product lines.
Yeah.
Great.
Rajendra, do
Thanks.
we have any more questions from the audience? Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Sir, what you are would like to give importance of the insurance for the startup peoples, especially in the failurity to come back in failurity and all these situations.
I think it's best addressed by someone in the insurance business. I'm not very knowledgeable about it, but
It is not, I mean, not a insurance, but what kind of it will be helpful for the startup? Because if you are, no doubt, if you are good knowledge, is hardworking and all these things, but still we cannot give guarantee of the all startup peoples will be successful. Sometime maybe possibility in spite of taking all cares, we will lose. So in that situation, if you are insurables in all things, so they can be helpful to you in the rethinking and reprocess and come back for the unfavorable situations. So what kind of care they would like to be take?
I think there are two things. One is government can make safe. I think places like Magic are in some ways insurance, but insurance is also a mindset. It's how you structure your risk. It also defines your insurance. So I think risk methodical risk taking is something that needs to be taught. I feel that if that is taught, then you can minimize your risk. I mean, you cannot eliminate it, certainly, but uh, reduce it to a very large extent. So I think these two things probably would go a long way. But to be honest, you cannot really remove the risk from it.
Abhishek, I'll just add to what you said. This question was from Vishwas, and Vishwas, it is not only about startups being insured, it is any business or any new
It's
venture.
true. Not even business. Even if it's you're tomorrow being a guitarist, it's a risk.
Right. A business meaning anything,
Right.
which is new.
That is what I would like to do. In what in
Difficult.
startups, basically we are first problem is the funding in especially in India. Many startup peoples are and in that situations, if they and for that reason they are not too much give importance to the insurability of their projects and all these things. And in that situations, if the something is wrong going happen, so they in next time they are not too much strained to come back from that situation. So give a insurable things या insurability को importance देना चाहिए startup people ने ऐसा एक मुझे लगता है. Those who are already have a big money fund and all these things, they can come back from the failurity situation. But for the startups, it is very difficult to come back in again stand up in the market.
It is true. That's all I can say. It is true. There is a risk,
So
and
giving the importance and the more stress on the insurability of
Yes,
the
yeah.
projects and
This
in
is
all
part of
aspects.
ADA and government, as per me.
What?
This is part of ADA and government should take over on this
No, why
insurance.
should take a government and all response? This is the wonderful. So we had
One
great
question
input.
from my side, I'm Pankaj.
Can you
Abhishek,
put it on chat, please?
yeah, listen you.
Yes, sir.
There is
Can
a
you?
big challenge in Indian ecosystem for startups.
Yes, yes. Go ahead.
it's been muted.
Can you put your questions on chat?
Rohit, how are we on time? I have time, so I don't
We
mind
are over.
addressing.
We can
I
do
don't mind addressing the
another.
question, but I don't know what's the schedule with Magic.
We can do another 10 minutes if you're okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. There are some questions in the chat. I don't mind answering them.
Okay. Rajendra, are there any questions that you want to go with first, or you want to go
Actually,
with the chat box?
Rajendra's mic's problem is that therefore we have to take over.
Okay. So, do we have questions?
Yeah, there is one
So,
question here.
mhm.
Okay, Yogesh, you can carry on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just address whatever I'm seeing. So there's a question on USP, how to build that USP. Don't worry too much about it. Just make some USP, make your best effort, go put it out there, see if it's working. So sometimes, I don't know if you've ever done that experiment with a tuning fork. You ring it, and if you put it to the vessel, you get a resonating sound. So that is how it is with the USP. You've got to keep experimenting with a couple of USPs until you find that whoever you are talking to is responding to that USP. So USP is not one single thing. It is a process of coming to a USP. So just make a USP, go out there and put it out and see what happens, and keep on changing it. Listen to what the people are saying, and listen to what excites people and what in your product resonates with that, and just circle to that. Before starting any business, what aspects should we consider most? How much risk can you take? Probably one. How much exposure is going to get opened up? Something like that. But most importantly is that, uh, do you have can you create data to convince yourself and some non-close third party is not your family, not your friend. It is an absolute neutral observer. Would that person get convinced that this is a good idea? So that is probably the first litmus check you need. I mean, you cannot the worst is starting because you are convinced, because it's so easy to fool yourself. That's the worst you can do. Second is going to someone who is very close to you, because they're going to say yes to what you want to hear. So I think it's important to get validation from an external third party, probably a devil's advocate. If you can convince a devil's advocate, you've got something at your hand. And second is knowing the size and scope of things. If you want to start a car company, it's a very hard thing to do. So evaluating the general scope and size, and the way you can do that is by researching, talking to people, and you'll be able to come up with an estimate. And I think these are key points to know before you start something. In India, it's tough to get pre-seed for MVP. How should startup deal with this? My first vacuum I made, I had one vacuum cleaner in my house which was 20-year-old. Then we had recently bought a new vacuum cleaner. I bought a plastic water drum. Aurangabad is a water problem, so we have got water drums everywhere. So we had a water drum. I put a jute bag in it. I bought some PVC pipe. I connected my two vacuum cleaners, and I made a big vacuum cleaner out of it. So MVPs can be made through a lot of things. I think you just have to be very creative. Collaboration opportunities. At the moment, I don't think much, unless you can buy our products. I would be happy to sell them to you. Or you can recommend our products to someone who you think could use them. But apart from them, at the moment, not a lot. I think I've addressed most of the questions in the chat box, Rohit.
Yep. So the last one I had for you is when we are talking about the space outside waste management, how do you see yourself? So if you had to pivot yourself, what would you pivot on?
I would pivot on one, going to the private space. Second is having more subscription kind of businesses, because that's the kind of business all kinds of banks love, all kinds of investors love, when there is money coming in every month. So, and also that's also the new thing. So if you can give your product as a service, or whatever, your thing as a service, if you can recraft your business into that, I think that would be fantastic. So I think export, private large clients which have high credit rating, and giving service to them on a 3-year contract, those kind of businesses are absolutely beautiful, because you've got steady flow of money coming in, projecting far out into the future, and it's very financeable and easier to work with. Your risks are much lesser. So generally those areas I would navigate
Gotcha.
towards.
Gotcha. Perfect. Ashish sir or Ritesh sir, would you like to kind of close out the conversation with the word of thanks and anything else you want to add?
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hey, hi. Ashish sir or Ritesh sir, do you want to kind of help us close out the conversation? Sorry, I have a bad network. Hello?
Rohit, you're audible.
Yeah, I would like to thank Abhishek for sparing his valuable time and sharing his journey. I am sure all those who attended today's session have immensely benefited out of their participation as they heard Abhishek share all the challenges that he faced during last 5 years as part of his startup journey. And I'm sure in days to come he would be available to Magic as we are supporting and nurturing few startups who are connected with waste management, and I'm sure his one-on-one interaction with those startups would definitely help the budding entrepreneurs understand the ground realities that exist for the startups as they venture into the market. I take this opportunity to all the attendees, participants, and various institutions from where they have joined. I also thank all the officials who supported us in ensuring that we reach out to all our ecosystem partners, and I thank each one of them. And lastly, but not the least, I would also like to appreciate the efforts put in by Magic team at a very short notice. We could finalize this particular program and host this event. So thank you one and all, and we look forward to working closely with Abhishek, especially for the budding startups who are right now undergoing incubation at Magic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you so much, Rohit, and everyone who was here. Lovely to talk to everyone.
Wonderful. So, Abhishek, we'll continue the work we are doing together. I really appreciate the help and the advice you gave to one of the startups that we are working with, and we'll keep working together. Thanks all. Thanks a lot. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.